people wonder about that. Those in our community, we look and we see this struggle, this battle going on. And the reason I say that is I want you to all understand that I want to share a Native perspective, that those who come across this wide ocean are as strange to me, as strange to us, as those who waded across a small river. The only difference is that those who came across that small river are indigenous, and they're brown just like us. And I don't want to make you uncomfortable, but they live here. Yes. And the rest of you are just visiting. I speak to you very truthfully as a Native American. And I say tongue-in-cheek that if you don't get along, perhaps we just need to send you all back. And the other thing, I'm very, as I get older, I try to understand things. I'm very literal. I hear every day on these talk radio shows about these papers. I've never seen any of those papers. And most of you white people here have never seen those papers. But we talk about them, and we demand them of people, but we don't know what we're talking about. And I want you just to think about, I want you to think about that. How, and I listen to the debate as best I can. And people say, well, we want to come here, they need to come here legally. And we need those pathways to citizenship, and I can certainly understand that. And, but I guess when I look at those signs and I reflect on that, it occurs to me that for 200 years we've never had to worry about pathways to citizenship. We simply look at those ads in Europe, Africa, Asia, other places, and they say, come to Iowa, come to Nebraska, you have free land. And it was okay then, but now it's not. Now we need papers. The other thing I would tell you is that when I was in Lincoln a week ago too, I looked at this sign right here, and I've heard this discussion legally, morally, philosophically, socially, politically. And I've seen all the thousands of signs, I've heard the thousands of words, and as a Native American, I looked out in the audience last week at the Capitol and I seen a sign. And it made more sense to me than anything I have heard. And all of us have to painfully think about it. That sign simply says, there are no illegals on stolen land. And of all the things I've seen, I stopped and looked at that for a long time. And I simply reminded everybody the truth in that there are no illegals on stolen land.
Right.
And who are we? Are we God? No. And we have made ourselves godlike. We've lost our humility. We've forgotten how to be good to one another. Most notably, our children. I heard several days ago there was a call out in Nebraska for a number of attorneys, other social workers and such, to go to the border to help. And I didn't know what that meant, and I listened very carefully because that's what I would try to do. They said they need interpreters. And I want to tell all of our Woodbury County, Sioux City folks, and especially Native Americans, I want them to hear this. They said they need interpreters at the border. And I was wondering about that. I said, I'm sure that everybody, American, Mexican, I'm sure that they have plenty of interpreters. I'm sure that you have people who can speak Spanish. I listened a little bit more, and they were looking for interpreters who can translate indigenous languages. We look at this as Americans, and we look at it as a Mexican issue. I want Native people and us to understand it's an indigenous issue. Many of those coming here live here. And I want the Native community to begin to step up, and they're not even aware of that. Now that we're aware of it, we need to begin to act. These are Indian kids. These are no different than the kids we fight for in a courthouse down the street when they are threatened with termination of parental rights. When they're separated from their families, we fight for them here. What is the difference? And I want us to really make that connection and understand the role that we can even play here. That young lady who stood there last week on the steps at the Capitol had a sign. It said, there are no illegals on stolen land. I watched that and I looked at it, and I looked at that Native woman, and she had 2 little kids, perhaps 4 and 5, and they stood with her. I knew her to be Native woman from her sign. And I looked to her right and I saw another young lady, obviously Hispanic lady because she spoke Spanish. And she had 2 little children, stair steps, about 4 and 5. And what I want to tell you today, they look the same to me. I talked to her afterwards. They were all born here. They took their first breaths here. I would guess it is a hope for the mothers and the families that they delivered their last sighs here. These are Americans. And who are we now to do this? I'm going to say very simply to you and tell you the obvious, because we can break it down, and I can watch television all day and come up with all kinds of perspectives, right, left, and in the middle. And as the pastor said, it's just about simple morality. Good God, these are children ripped from their parents because of an agenda of somebody in the White House who really does not understand. And I think all of us need to speak to that. No matter who we are, we need to make ourselves uncomfortable and make everybody uncomfortable. I saw a sign over here with a, one of them had a Bible verse on it. And I have many shortcomings like all of us. And I don't understand Christianity like I should, and that Bible like I should. But I do know one thing about that Bible that I speak to all the time. And it's that verse that you see over there in Revelations. Of all of the things that we could talk about, I want to share with you what it says in Revelations. It says very simply that all will be gathered before the throne, and books will be opened. Whenever there's a fight, whenever there's a struggle, whenever there's a need to give voice to someone, I always remember that, because I believe that to be true. There will be a time when all of us must stand up, and perhaps that time is now. There is no coincidence. I've come to know that in my work. All of you, for whatever reason, old, young, whoever you are, for whatever reason, it was determined that you be here today. Each and every one of you are chosen to come over here today. None of you more important than the other. We came here today because the Creator determined we would do that. And from this gathering, good would come. And that, I think, is what we can do. Make some good come from this. There's 100 things we can do, all of you. What can I do? What can I do? What can I do? You'll say that. I don't know what you can do. You do. If I said make a phone call, you'll say, is that all you think of me, that I can make a phone call? Some of you may go sit on the steps of the federal building. That's good too. Do what you can. They ask me all the time, what's magic? How does this change? Do what you can. And that's what we will do. And they're doing that across the country today. I am going to speak later on. I'm going to tell our folks in Lincoln and Omaha that we too gathered in Sioux City.
Yes.
And we too are committed and will gather until we take care of this matter.
That's right.
Let us remember these children. They're our children.
Yes.
And if nothing else, remember something I'm going to tell you. Nothing changes unless somebody's made to feel uncomfortable. Nothing changes until you make yourself uncomfortable. And this I want you to remember about these little brown children. And remember about your own children and your own grandchildren. When they grow old, they must know that you fought for them.
Yes.
You think about them as your grandchildren. When they grow old, they're going to ask about this. And you're going to tell them that I was there and I took that step. I share that with you, and thank you very much for all of you gathered. And I agree. Abolish ICE. Get rid of them. When I say these things very publicly, I really mean that. Now I've backed myself into a corner because on Monday I'm going to tell them that you need to get rid of yourselves. I did that with ATF a week ago because of their raid on Winnebago. Speak out.
Yes.
And I'm going to leave you with this. Here's why you get to speak out today and tomorrow. I had to share this someday. On July the 1st, tomorrow, 47 years ago, in Quang Tri, Vietnam, a young man from our community died defending the Constitution of the United States. He barely turned 20 years old. He was walking the point position on a combat patrol in Quang Tri. He died defending the Constitution. A Constitution that gives you a right to talk about how it could be and how it should be. A Constitution that allows you to come over here and get mad if you want to.
That's right.
And I believe I'm going to remember him tonight and tomorrow, my younger brother, my best friend. And I stand on his shoulders whenever we gather because I did not pay for my right to come over here. He did. You did not pay for that right. He did. And I want to dare say that in speaking and giving voice to these children, I believe that Tony Lemire would have been here today. That is how strongly he feels about the country. He felt about the Constitution. Let us get rid of ICE. Let us get after them. Make yourselves uncomfortable. Be not geeky. Thank you.